What happens when religious sacred rules clash with the nation's democratic values? This isn't just a story. It's about power, human rights, and the price of religious beliefs. The Jehovah's Witnesses who have been shunning others have also been shunned by Sweden. If you are new here, welcome to our channel. Tell me Dr. K, a channel manipulative religious leaders wish you never discover. If you crave for such deep dives, subscribe and smash the notice bell so that you don't miss part 2 of this series. On October 24th, 2025, Sweden sent shockwaves through the religious landscape. Swedish authorities rejected the Jehovah's Witnesses' application to state aid, declaring their internal policies violated democratic values. Sweden's 2024 487 Act on State Aid to Religious Communities, a new legislation that ties public funding not just to organizational structure, but to values, non-discrimination, equality, and freedom. According to SST, Jehovah's Witnesses ostracize those who live and deny membership according to sexual orientation or partner choice. Practices that Sweden now considers incompatible with state-supported democracy. And when the SST asked for clarifications, Jehovah's Witnesses refused to fully engage. No comment on shunning. No clear answer to LGBTQ exclusion. The silence spoke volumes. Now, it's important to understand that this is not a ban. Jehovah's Witnesses are still free to practice their faith in Sweden. However, they do not qualify to receive state funding because their internal policies are in conflict with democratic values in accordance with the new law that has just been passed. Sweden's 2024 487 Act. The message is loud and clear. Public money won't fund policies that isolate, coerce, or discriminate. Sweden's decision wasn't made overnight. For years, the government faced legal pressure to include the Jehovah's Witnesses in its religious grants. Courts ruled in their favor, but lawmakers weren't comfortable. Former Secretary of State said bluntly, if Jehovah's Witnesses met the old criteria, the legislation has obviously not worked. So in 2024, Sweden rewrote its law. Now, any group that fails to uphold democratic values would be turned down for state funding. And Jehovah's Witnesses were the first one to face the major test. SST said it reviewed documents, websites, interviews, and the result was damning. Democratic values and human impact. 1. Discriminatory membership. Individuals in the same-sex relationships or with an approved partner are reported denied membership or expelled. 2. Shunning. Members who leave are cut off. Families split, children alienated. Sweden calls it undue pressure, a kind of coercion, a breach of democratic norms. Now, this is about more than rules. It's about people. Those who left the faith and lost everything. Reaction, what comes next? Jehovah's Witnesses say they are being misrepresented, that their practices are based on scripture, that members choose to follow them. But SST says the refusal to cooperate sealed their fate. No transparency, no funding. I wonder what is going to happen to the Jehovah's Witnesses when many other countries start following Sweden's example. Jehovah's Witnesses may appeal, but now Sweden has drawn a line in the sand. Religious freedom exists, but taxpayers' money comes with conditions. Equality, non-discrimination, and the right to walk away. Sweden may have taken the first swing, but across Europe and beyond, the same question is echoing. Should the state fund or protect religious groups that shun, isolate, and discriminate. From Scandinavia to Eastern Europe, Australia to the Americas, Jehovah's Witnesses are under legal and political pressure. This is the global crackdown you didn't hear about until now. In 2022, Norway revoked state funding and registration for Jehovah's Witnesses. The accusation: they violated individual rights through shunning, particularly for minors who leave the religion. It was a bold move, one that stripped the religious organization of state funding and registration. Jehovah's Witnesses appealed. In 2024, a lower court sided with government. But then, March 2025, a dramatic twist. The Bogotá Court of Appeal overturned the decision, declaring that the group's practices were legal under Norwegian law. The state wasn't done. It appealed to the Supreme Court, and a final decision is looming in February 2026. The outcome? It could define religious rights across Europe. Belgium, Czech pushback. In Belgium, the fight went to criminal court. In 2021, a Ghent court convicted Jehovah's Witnesses of inciting discrimination because of their strict shunning policies. It was hailed as breakthrough for ex-members, but it didn't last. The decision was overturned on appeal in 2022. And by 2023, Belgium's highest court ruled shunning, while harsh, was not illegal. In the Czech Republic, 2024 saw the threatening of registration for the Jehovah's Witnesses, the concerns, blood transfusion refusal for minors, and you guessed it, shunning. Authorities cited children's health and emotional well-being. Jehovah's Witnesses cited religious liberty. By October 2025, Czech officials paused the registration, but the debate rages on. Denmark, Russia, and Australia. Denmark opened a government oversight case. Politicians asked, should tax exemptions go to religious groups that silence dissent? But nowhere has the crackdown been as extreme as Russia. The Supreme Court of Russia banned Jehovah's Witnesses entirely, labeling them extremist. Thousands of witnesses have been detained, property seized, and worship driven underground, homes raided, literature banned. It is the hardest anti-witness action in modern history.
On November 12, 2014, the Supreme Court of the Russian Federation upheld a lower court decision to liquidate the legal entity of Jehovah's Witnesses in Samara, one of the largest cities in Russia. The Supreme Court dismissed the witnesses' appeal contesting the allegations of extremism, the actions of the police, and the heavy-handed punishment. How did Russian law enforcement authorities go about liquidating the Samara legal entity? And what does this mean for Jehovah's Witnesses in Russia?
Эта история началась еще с 2013 года, с января, когда человек 15, наверное, в штатском зашли и показали постановление об обыске.
И во время этого обыска было найдено несколько публикаций, которые внесены в список экстремистских. Поэтому у большинства складывается такое впечатление, что данные публикации были заранее подложены.
In Australia, it wasn't the courts, but the Australian Royal Commission into institutional response to child sexual abuse that exposed the troubling gaps. Jehovah's Witnesses were found to have failed to report abuse and mishandled complaints. And the result? Massive backlash and forced reforms. Australia now mandates religious reporting even within religious confessions. Jehovah's Witnesses were forced to revise their internal policies to comply, financial and legal fallout. Now, these rulings are not symbolic. They come with real costs. In Norway alone, it is reported that Jehovah's Witnesses lost over $1.5 million annually in state support. In Sweden, projected losses are in hundreds of thousands of dollars per year. Globally, their reputation has shifted from a neutral organization that doesn't get involved in politics, that does not support any political organization, to subjects of scrutiny. Media portrayals have turned critical. Courts have called the doctrines in question, its financial and social reckoning.
Our theme this month is Christian neutrality. What it means, what it takes, and why we choose it. What is your opinion? Where do you stand? As Christians, what is our position where political matters are concerned? We are neutral. Sometimes people misunderstand this viewpoint. Some have concluded that because we don't promote one human government, that we must be promoting another human government. And whereas some have perceived our Christian neutrality as sheer apathy, others construe our position as a threat. Let's address both of these viewpoints. First, there is a big difference between Christian neutrality and apathy. Apathy is defined as a lack of interest, enthusiasm, or concern. We certainly don't lack interest in people, nor are we insensitive to their feelings. Like Jesus, we strive to alleviate people's suffering by helping them in practical ways, while teaching them about the only kingdom that can eliminate injustice. By teaching people from God's Word, we endeavor to change hearts, not political institutions. We feel this approach is realistic because mankind's main problems are not political, but moral. But why can it be said that Jehovah's Witnesses are not a threat, but rather an asset? We conscientiously obey the laws. We support our communities through volunteer service or compulsory civilian service where that exists. And we pay our taxes. It's true we don't vote for political parties or candidates, but neither do we disrupt elections or interfere with those who choose to vote. It's true we don't lobby, campaign, or run for government office, but neither do we criticize those in power, undermine their policies, or demonstrate for political change. It's true we don't sing national anthems, but neither do we discourage others from singing, nor do we make a public spectacle of not singing. We simply don't participate.
Legal fees, compliance reviews, and damaged public image add up. Globally, it's financial, legal, and social reckoning time for the Watchtower Society. What this means for faith and freedom. Now, this isn't just about the Jehovah's Witnesses. It's about what happens when faith collides with the law. Should states hold religions accountable for internal policies? Or does the path lead to censorship and overreach? Can shunning be both a sacred act and a human rights violation? One thing is certain. The global conversation has begun. And no religious group is immune. So, it may have happened to Jehovah's Witnesses. Other religious organizations should not start celebrating, because once it starts, we don't know where it is going to end. We don't know how much human rights violations are going to infringe on religious freedom. And as laws change, so will the meaning of religious freedom change. So it has happened to Jehovah's Witnesses. It may happen to any religious organization. So this shouldn't be a cause of celebration, because the implications might go beyond one religious group. For over a century, Jehovah's Witnesses have preached neutrality. No politics, no war, no interference with government.
So as Christians, what is our position where political matters are concerned? We are neutral. It's true we don't sing national anthems, but neither do we discourage others from singing, nor do we make a public spectacle of not singing. We simply don't participate.
But in the 2020s, governments have interfered with them. From Sweden's state funding rejection to Russia's total ban, the group now stands at a crossroads. Leaders warn of persecution, that these actions fulfill prophecy, and they will double down on it. And for members, these oppositions validate their faith. And the governing body is going to capitalize on it and make more money out of this. And not just money, attract more followers, because the Watchtower Society thrives in a state of uncertainty, confusion, and problems.
So here we are, right on the cusp of the outbreak of the Great Tribulation. The article from which our text is taken, entitled "Your Deliverance is Getting Near" in the July 15, 2015 issue of the Watchtower, points out, in harmony with the Scriptures, boiling down a number of scriptural facts, that Babylon the Great will be destroyed. Then the initial part of the Great Tribulation will be cut short. There will be a brief respite during which the majority of mankind will seek refuge in human organizations. Our message of good news will change to one of judgment. Then the coalition of nations, referred to as Gog of Magog, will be bent on attacking Jehovah's anointed ones and their associates. Now, only loyal love for Jehovah, obedient support of his anointed ones, will get us through. That will mean everything. So what must we do now? Stay awake. You have an identity.
But internally, the mood is shifting. Legal losses and social backlash, ex-members' activism. The pressure is mounting. Legal implications. State scrutiny is no longer symbolic. When governments withdraw funding or threaten deregistration, they challenge not just religious practice, but legal status. In Sweden, the decision set a precedent. No democratic alignment, no public support. In Russia, being labeled extremist criminalized even private worship. Courts in Norway, Belgium, Australia all pushed definitions of religious cohesion, freedom, and harm. This is testing the outer limit of what courts allow as religious freedom. Financial and organizational impact. The financial impact is staggering. Millions in state aid lost across Europe. Lawsuits multiplying. Organizationally, the Jehovah's Witnesses are being forced to adapt. Legal departments expanding. Public reaction campaigns increasing. Internal policies scrutinized than never before. The core doctrines like Shunning haven't changed. And that's where the pressure will keep on building. Of course, the organization has changed the language. Instead of disfellowshipping, they are calling it removal. They now have allowed a greeting when a disfellowshipped person comes to the meeting. That elders can now pay a visit beyond the initial visit. Here is a clip that highlights the cosmetic changes the Watchtower Society has made to Shunning. Immediately after the state funding for the Watchtowers was stopped and the organization deregistered.
The governing body has prayerfully considered how Jehovah's mercy could be better reflected when dealing with wrongdoers in the congregation. And that's led to a clearer understanding of 3 scriptures. In keeping with the scriptural admonition at 1 Corinthians 5:11, when a person has been removed from the congregation, we stop keeping company with that person, not even eating with such a man. That means we don't socialize with those who are removed from the congregation. However, that does not mean that a Christian could not invite a disfellowshipped person to attend a congregation meeting. That disfellowshipped person could be a relative, a former Bible student, or someone we were close to in the past. How appropriate this adjustment is at this time, as we're preparing for the most important meeting of the year, the memorial, which will be held on Sunday, March 24th. What if a disfellowshipped person comes to a congregation meeting? Under our current arrangement, we don't say a greeting to individuals who've been removed from the congregation. However, the governing body has decided that publishers can use their Bible-trained conscience to decide whether to give a simple greeting and welcome a disfellowshipped individual who attends a congregation meeting.
Hi. So good to see you here.
Thank you.
While we wouldn't have an extended conversation or socialize with such a person, we do not need to ignore him completely.
Social fallout and cultural shifts. Socially, the walls are closing in. Former members are organizing, sharing stories of family estrangement, abuse cover-up, gender inequality, podcasts, documentaries, ex-member platforms. They are reaching millions. Mainstream media is no longer neutral. Courts are listening. Governments are taking notes. Meanwhile, younger members are asking tough questions. Can I be loyal to my faith and still support equality? Marry somebody from another faith? These are the cracks that will define the future. So what does this mean for religious freedom? Can a faith demand unquestioning loyalty and still expect state protection? Can governments protect minority rights without policing belief? Jehovah's Witnesses may be the current target, but the ripple effects go wider. So don't celebrate if you are an opponent to the Jehovah's Witnesses. If the state can withhold funding over Shunning, what about Catholic confessions, Orthodox gender roles, Muslim dress codes? We are entering a new time where freedom of belief meets the force of democratic values. The line is being drawn, and everyone, governments, believers, ex-members, must decide where they stand. If you have enjoyed this deep dive, like, subscribe, and smash the notice bell so that you don't miss what is coming next.